Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi Live Coding. In this episode, I will kind of talk about vector lerping or vector evaluate nodes in Sverchok, this guy right here. Basically, to have a way to do kind of like a more advanced type of lofting. So in this case, so this setup is making this kind of a surface that looks like a pyramid. But basically, this is just a slight modification from the previous live noding. So I basically have two profiles, like this guy, the one that's like a rounded square, and then this guy, which is the one at the center. And what I created here is the in between. That's kind of the thing that's interest me at this time. And so you can the one in the center is basically a circle. It's very simple. This outer part is like a rounded rectangle, and I can kind of adjust that bits right there. But the one that's in between here, I'm using the Vector Lerp, and there's this kind of thing like list splitting and list repeater. That's kind of the one that's interesting, but it's always slightly advanced, I think, and it's not always clear. So I decided maybe I should build this from scratch just to make this very clear. I'll give you this setup anyway later, but I will build this thing from scratch. I will put this Blender to the side, and I'll start from scratch here. So Compositing, Sverchok Add-On, New, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'll save this as SV Lerping Advanced 001, and I'll start with a circle. I'll make two of them. Do a viewer draw, and by default, circle will give you a circle, of course. There's one thing. There's also something called vector interpolations. So you probably have seen me using this a couple of times. This guy do the interpolations, but more like along the edges. So in case of a circle, if we there's this value between 0 and 1, and if we plug in a range of value between 0 and 1, oops, it just crashes. I will restart Blender real quick. Okay, I have to start from scratch. Anyway, it's a circle. I'll make one slightly larger and use viewer draw. So vector interpolations. This will interpolate along the edges. So if we use this guy and value between 0 and 1, count of 10, this will give me 10 points that interpolates along the circle. So that's pretty clear right there. So I can play around with a start and a stop value as long as it's between 0 and 1. So that's kind of clear, but vector interpolation is not what we're gonna use here. We're gonna use Vector Lerp. So this node is very powerful. We can pipe in this circle. Both have the same number of points, 24 points, with different radius. So this guy will interpolate. So by default we get the lerp. The lerp will actually allow you to animate. If you pipe in a range of float of number, like a count of between 0 and 1, I'll give it like 24. This will interpolate. You see, it's kind of interesting. But that's not what we're gonna use. We're gonna use actually this Vector Lerp evaluate. Now with evaluate, it's kind of creating points between this smaller circle and the larger circle. Okay, so that's pretty clear, pretty simple what it does, but it's really powerful because if we use something like UV connections, now it's starting to get more interesting. You see, this guy doesn't give you like a lofting. If you're lofting like a 2 profile, if you're thinking about lofting operations, it's supposed to create surface based on this 2 circle. So that's kind of what I want to create here. Basically just a lofting, but we have a lot of control. I tried it like all kind of possibilities here, but none of them seems to be working. But this option slice, it's not always clear what it does, but it's basically it will work in a way that if you have like a slice value, it will kind of work out the data more correctly. Here, if you see in this example, I'm using list, split, and list repeater. This guy, split and repeater, is actually very powerful in Sverchok. Not always easy to understand, but I'll show it to you. So if I split this guy 24 times, I will have 24 data. It's almost like if we have a list of data like A, B, C like this. If we split the data, it's become like A, B, C. So now it's become like a list inside a list. This way we can have like a kind of like a branching. I think that's the idea there. So now we have 24 data here. We also need to repeat this circle data 24 times. So list repeater 24 times, 24 times. Now still doesn't work. In this case, we need to unwrap. Suddenly we have something like that looks like a spider web. So that's actually what we want. And we need to turn off the slice. And let's see which one we want. U and V seems to give a similar result in this case. So, but they are actually different. See? And you can also play around with the cyclic. Or maybe you have like a cup. In a way, this is kind of like creating a cylinder. Very, very similar. So it's very interesting. If you create a cylinder or a cone, you probably wanna, I'll save this first, just in case. Let's say if I move one of the circle, just move this guy up. So we have like a cone. And if we turn on the cup, we get like a cylinder. So I think that's very cool, very interesting as well. So we're not gonna move this guy in this case, just back to normal. So we have like a spider web, so that's cool. What's the deal here? We can actually kind of doing like all kind of modifications to the circle. Like if I use like random vector, randomize input vertices, we can add some kind of randomizations, and this guy, the lofting will adjust itself. So it's become like a lofting. Same deal with this guy right here. Just add some kind of randomizations, randomize the seed. So that's kind of cool. And we can also do a little bit more. So we have these two circles interpolating or like lofting between each other. We can have two more circle, and we can add it together with UV connections. UV connection is actually very powerful nodes right here. So we can have a smaller circle and then the one in between and larger one. So that's the large one. It's going to be a smaller one. And this guy is whatever here in between. And the in between needs to have the same value like all the circle. Actually, this guy can be any number. And you can control the start and the stop. So I think that's very cool. That's how I get to this kind of design. As long the number of points is the same, and then so we can have this kind of design, and we can kind of make it like up and down in this case. So let's say here, if we want, we kind of pushing the thing ups and down. What did I do here? See, I'm kind of using move, Vector Lerp, and then move it ups and down. Okay, let's do that. Vector Lerp. This is the circle inner one, that's the outer circle. We can use vector move and vector in here. We can kind of push it up or push it down. See, that's very cool. And you can multiply it. Maybe the multiplier, I can just give like a random number to the multiplier. So maybe negative or positive. It's gonna give us a different result. So once again, we have some kind of interesting thing happening here. See, it doesn't give you what you might expect because you probably need to do like a splitting and a multiplier once again here because the number is not matching. In this case, maybe we can use like a list split. Instead of using the multiplier here, we're just gonna split the value here. Random number goes into the z, but we're gonna split the value once again just to match the structure. Now we have how many? 24. We need to have 24. So now the number matches 24, 24, 24, and we have 24 the in between, and then we have the other circle, this guy and this guy. We can still multiply it if you like. We have this random number between these two guys. Randomize the seed. Maybe reduce the value a little bit. Let's fix this and that. 24. Maybe we don't have 24 here. How many? It's 20. We actually have. We just need 10. So this will be dependent on the other guy. So that's 10. This is also 10. Now it's correct. Maybe increase this guy. Okay, there you go. That's the structure. It looks like a UFO, you know, like a flying saucer of some sort. This is a pyramid, and there's like a flying saucer. Maybe I should make some kind of flying saucer next time. But anyhow, this is like a quick look at the UV connection. Actually, more like a Vector Lerp. a little bit more advanced than before, but I think you get it. I think this should be clear now. How you, if you want to create a cylinder in Sverchok, you can have a two circle, and you kind of using a lerp to interpolate between the two circle, which means you kind of simply just lofting them. In some other program that's kind of lofting the two. In the Sverchok, you have kind of like a little bit bigger nodes, but you can do a lot of things that's more advanced than just a simple lofting. You can even like scale the circle, whatever, and do whatever to the circle if you know what you're doing. Sometimes you get slightly tricky, but with some kind of practice, it's not that tricky. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for this live noding. Hopefully this one kind of clear up some things a little bit more advanced, but I'm pretty sure this can be useful if you are creating something that requires lofting. So I guess I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again for tuning in. Bye.